Dear friends and participants to this web forum on the new European Industrial Strategy and the European Recovery Program after the COVID-19 crisis. We, Enrico Cicciotti, Gioacchino Garofoli and myself would like to thank you for your active participation and the exchange of opinions in the preparation of this web forum. The wide world of research in economics has the social responsibility to communicate to the citizen and to the policymakers at the regional, national and European level. In this forum, we will present analysis and policy proposals aimed to relaunch the economic growth and to improve the environment in the cities and in the territory after more than 10 years of sluggish growth in Europe since the 2007 and 2008 financial crisis and now in this dramatic crisis of COVID pandemic. The group Growth, Investments and Territory is an interdisciplinary and international think tank active since 2014, and it has organized many workshops. In December 2019, we organized a forum at the European Economic and Social Committee in Brussels, and this new web forum is also about the same issue, as we intend to enlarge the debate on a new European industrial strategy to many other economists and also to the public opinion made by young people and economic actors. There is a large consensus not only between the preliminary contribution to be presented here and available at the link indicated in the program, but also with other colleagues who have signed various documents in the past month, expressing the need for a change with respect to the orthodox neoliberal and ordoliberal ideologies which have constrained past economic policies in Europe. We also agree that populist reaction is inadequate and without a vision for Europe and our countries. We wish that the world of institutions, of policymakers, and the media will be interested in listening the series of about 20 original contributions to be presented in this web forum. We thank you all. And I give the floor to Professor André Torre, President of the European Regional Science Association, which together with the Regional Studies Association are the two scientific associations to which most of us belong and are promoting the research and the debate on regional industrial economics in Europe. André, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much and good morning to everybody. So as Ricardo said, I'm André Torre, I'm the president of ERSA, which stands for the European Regional Science Association. And I really thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be there and to participate to this very interesting event and debates. So I'm very happy and I'm very satisfied to be here, at least for three reasons. The first reason is that I have a long academic friendship with Riccardo Capellin, but also with Gioacchino Garofoli and Enrico Cicciotti and other people in the room here. And they participate in this event and to the movement initiated by Riccardo in favor of a reflection of the economic policies in Europe, of course. The second reason is that a part of this job, of this work, will be presented during the next ERSA conference, web conference. You know maybe that we have been obliged to cancel the ERSA conference, which was previously held in Bolzano. And then we have replaced it by a web conference, which will appear from the 25th to the 27th of August. And during this event, a special session will be devoted to the presentation of, of more academic work related to the job you are doing there. These are the two first reasons why I'm happy to be there. But the third one is by far the most important one. It is related to the huge interest of your work and also of your reflection. We need more than ever, I think, economic and industrial policies, especially in Europe now. The COVID crisis has put a crude light on the current state of a large part of the European economies, the weakness of industrial production and the constant movement of delocalization of production have put our economies in a very fragile and in a very non-resilient state. If I take the example of my country, France, which was a very industrialized country, now we are facing a huge recession mainly due to the strong movement of delocalization, to the weakness of the industry, and to our major dependence to the tourism services and to the foreign tourists, which is a very new situation we are not used to face. So also there are the new problems all over Europe regarding the health services, and also the question of the food sovereignty, which will raise in the future, and which is related to the agro-business industry, and not only to the agricultural sector. So we need a strong economic and industrial policy with clear goals, and also with a clear agenda and a clear catalogue of measures, and not the traditional orthodox laissez-faire policies. So thank you to think about this. Thank you to have handled this big task. It's very, very important. It's crucial, and now it's even more crucial than it was before the COVID crisis. And thank you to assume the risk to think in a focused and non-conventional way. So good luck and good work now. And I will be also with you and will share with you the debates and the exchanges. Thank you.
Thank you, André. Yeah, we have a few minutes of a break, and we start again at 9 with the first session. But if someone wanted to say something, I see Luciano Pilotti raising the hand. Do you want to speak? Keep the microphone open.
It's simply okay about the introduction. Thank you.
So now it's 8:55. We can wait until 9. All the speakers are online. I say hello to Sébastien, who was here, okay. And we already saw John Goddard. Piotr Wojcik is here.
Yes, I'm here, hello.
You can put on your screen. Yes, very good. And Salustri, Andrea.
Good morning, Professor.
To start this very interesting webinar. I'm Enrico Cicciotti. I organize the things with Riccardo and Gioacchino, and I will start the session speaking about cities, now I will try to share my screen with you. I hope I will be able to do it. Let me see. Yes, can share all participants. Yes, no, all participants. Okay. So what's going on? Why? Now it doesn't work. So okay. So this is the title. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This is the title of my presentation, A New Territorial and Industrial, I don't know why it doesn't, and industrial policy for the need of citizens for a sustainable development after the COVID. So I have to wait this one. Okay. The presentation is organized as follows. 3 steps: the emerging socioeconomic scenario after COVID-19, the relations with the goal of sustainable development, Agenda 2030. You will see that there is a strong relation between the problems and opportunities emerging from the new scenarios and the goals and objective of the Agenda 2030, sorry. And the founding principle of a new policy. Let's start with the emerging socioeconomic scenario after COVID-19. I articulated the things according to the different aspects: production systems, crisis of the globalization model, reinforcing of national strategic production, and in general, a greater reliance on local firms and possible reshoring of production. Short networking and internalization of production by firms, more orientation to internal market, and logistic and delivery services are new strategic assets. As far as consumption is concerned, we'll have an increase of online shopping, but coexistence of new and old model of consumption. Crisis of shopping malls, digitalization of economy, online teaching, online shopping, teleworking will increase significantly. Social and geographic disparities, strong digital divide, we already experienced it. Increase of social and geographic inequality, this is a very important point according to me. Sorry. Mobility and transportation, we're still speaking about the emerging socioeconomic scenario. Reorganization of public transport and new traffic regulation. Increase of private transport and individual urban mobility, pedestrian, cycle, scooter, and so on. Reducing of commuting. Problem in terms of governance and public intervention. More decentralization to local governance, measures, communities and neighbors, with the risk of increasing inefficiency, and at the same time, more centralization and strong central governments, with the risk of a central government crisis and bureaucracy. More digitalization of public data to map and predict, but increasing private concerns. Increasing role of civil society. Housing and urbanization. Needs for enhancing of metropolitan subcenters, creating new opportunities for the realization of small cities, providing a better management of urban density, adopting the 50-minute neighborhood. Furthermore, there is the need for new measures like sharing housing, common spaces, services, internet, fostering new solutions for the care of elderly people, granting social protection and employment benefits. Now let's have a look to the main goal of sustainable development as far as Goal 11 is concerned. Goal 11 say make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And according to the specific goal, this means adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services, safe, affordable, accessible, and sustainable transport system by expanding public transport, inclusive and sustainable urbanization, and capacity for participatory integration and sustainable human settlement planning, protection and safeguard of cultural and natural heritage, attention to air quality and municipal waste management, integrated policy and plans towards inclusion, resource efficiency, mitigation and adaptation to climate change, and resilience to disaster. Pandemic was not included, but now we know that is a crucial point. The founding principle of a new policy. If we match together the effects of COVID-19 and the expectation and the goals of the Agenda 2030, we found a strong relations that can be helpful for let's say, the founding of new principle of new policy. First point, greater orientation towards the internal market and the new needs of citizens. Housing, culture and leisure, health and social assistance, energy, environment, mobility and logistics are the principal sectors to which address new investments, when considering that part of them have been strongly influenced by COVID, both in negative terms, e.g. loss of employment, crisis in the field of culture, leisure and construction, as well in positive terms, with the development of new markets in the face of growing demand, for instance, health and social assistance, sustainable mobility, and urban logistics, digitalization. Second point, integrated strategic planning according to the logic of a quadruple helix. You know quite well, local institutions, companies, university and research, citizens, and civil society. Orientation to systemic innovation, open and focused on users, from a production of goods and services guided by experts according to a top-down model, to different forms and levels of co-production with consumers, customers, and citizens. A model of governance based on bottom-up approach, but regionally centrally integrated. The use of bottom-up approach must be done taking into account the limits that place-based policies have encountered in terms of planning and management capacity in the case of complex initiatives. It's also appropriate to aggregate demand on regional and national scale to achieve the appropriate economy of scale in the production of new goods and services, not only at a very small scale. We must operate according to the logic of sustainable development from the economic, social, and environmental point of view, centered on a bottom-up governance model, correct and framed in a national strategic framework. In this way, it's possible to select the markets, sectors, considered strategic, to provide assistance in the design and financing phases, and to integrate individual projects according to the logic of cooperation and synergy networks by obtaining economy of scale, both at the demand of the supply side. Sorry for the quotation of my name, I made forget about it. And finally, a scheme of industrial territorial policy in which I put on the left side the subject and then the different phase of the new policy. You see the subject, you have citizens and stakeholders, company, university, local authorities, the quadruple helix, then regional government, minister of industry, or something like that according to the country, and the European Union. So you have the integrated urban design, that means make strategic choices and make a survey of demand, that means select the project, and which phase the involvement is principally of citizens, stakeholders, companies, universities, and local authorities. And then we can pass to the design of new industrial territorial policy with strategic indication and aggregation of the demand, starting from the local level. In this case, the involvement is principally the local authorities for strategic indication, but then for regional governments, even for Ministry of Industry and the European Union. When I say, you know, a bottom-up approach integrated at national level. And this means, again, not only putting in strategic indication, giving strategic indication, but even aggregate the demand that start from the local level. In this case, after this phase, you can delineate a new national European program in which the strategic choice have been done at regional, Ministry of Industry, European level, and the instruments of intervention and at the same level, but even a small but important role for local authorities. Thank you very much for your attention, and I finish my presentation.
Barbara, carissima. Bene, tu come stai?
Stop share. Okay, so my presentation is finished and I will pass to the next speaker, that is Sébastien Bourdin. Sébastien, are you here? I don't see you.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
Okay.
Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. So we are going to present our approach, which is the circular economy as a means of territorialization of our European industry. So this is a work with André Thor. So the territorial development is a new big issue, and faced with recent developments in the international economy, territorial development is emerging as a response to be deepened not only for industrialized economies, but also for the economies of developing countries. So in the context of globalization, liberal solutions based on the macroeconomic framework alone do not seem likely to provide innovative responses to the need for development. So the question of the territorial development has led to some new spatial and regional policies. For example, in Europe, you have the smart specialization and smart development policies. And the idea behind that is that we need local solutions to global problems. So that means that territory matters. And this is a big issue. And for example, at the local level, we see a lot of new initiatives like ecological economy, local cooperation, initiative of clusters, etc. And regarding the definition of André Thor, we can say that the territorial development is the improvement of the wealth and well-being of populations located in a territory based on innovations. And what is very important is that by the past, we think that innovations is only about technical issues, technical innovations. But now we can see at the local level that there are also another type of innovations like organizational, social, and institutional innovations. And based on these innovations, we can think differently the production and the land use. And we can also say that the territorial development is both competition and cooperation between actors, given the initiatives and opposition on the local population. So regarding the territorial development, there are some new questions, not new for some of the questions. The first one is the climate change. So climate change is a big issue for all of us. And related to the climate change, there is another big issue, which is the rise of inequalities in the world. And more generally, the question of well-being of local population is raised. And this is the reason why we can ask the question, is it a good idea to develop again, to continue to grow, to think our future strategies by only thinking about growth? And our point of view is that we need to think about development rather than growth. And this idea has been developed with the concept of sustainable development. And more recently, we have seen the emergence of a new concept, which is the circular economy. And the idea of the circular economy is to break the linearity of the economy, of the production. That means that today, most of our production is extract, manufacture, consume, and dispose. And the idea of the circular economy is to close the loop. That means to extract, to manufacture, and to recycle. So this is we think that it is a new strategy that has to be implemented at the local and the regional level, because it allows us to use the resources with efficiency. So we think that the circular economy is a very important and very good response for sustainable territorial development. And it is also a possibility to territorialize of our European industry. So the question is how to manage, preserve, and make those resources more sustainable at the territorial level. And also we think that the circular economy is the right solution. So it can help to limit the dependence of economies and territories on external supplies of both raw materials and finished products. By using secondary raw materials like recycled plastic, etc., a company can diversify its sources of supply and also reduce its risks compared to its usual suppliers. So similarly, by developing repair and reuse, it can reduce its dependence on imports and suppliers whose decision-making centers are often far away from Europe. So typically, the circular economy can be a part of the solution of the reindustrialization of the Europe. And the circular economy can create growth and employment, can create development and employment without huge environmental damages at the territorial level. So for example, by developing the reuse of electronic devices, we reduce the production of new equipment, thereby preserving the drain on natural resources. And similarly, by supporting the recycling of these devices, we can recover metals and components whose extractions pose many environmental problems. So the circular economy, from our point of view, is a good strategy to tackle the problem of create job and to the problem of climate change. So when we look at the different initiatives that has emerged among the world, we can see that the circular economy was introduced in many public policies as a more operational approach than sustainable development. China was is now one of the countries which has implemented the best the question of circular economy, but there are a lot of initiatives in Europe. And for example, in France, there is the Institute of Circular Economy and the ADEME, which is the Agency of the Environment and the Energy, that is funding a lot of projects regarding the circular economy. So the idea is to switch to decarbonized energy with will only reduce 55% of current emissions. So to take care of the rest of the emissions, the deployment of a much more circular economy is certainly the most promising avenue. And for example, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's report on the subject shows that by applying a circular model, we could eliminate almost 25% of the global emissions in the world. So definitely it's a good solution for the climate change, but also to create jobs and to reduce the consumption of raw materials with producing new goods. So now the idea is to create a real sustainable territorial development, and to create this real sustainable development by introducing the circular economy. The idea is to develop what we call the industrial and territorial ecology. So the best example, I think that you know this example, is the Kalundborg symbiosis. So based on a systematic approach, industrial and territorial ecology is typically an operational approach that draws on natural ecosystem for an optimal management of materials and energy. So like the functioning of food chains in the natural environment, the waste and co-products of one activity can become a resource for another activity. So companies can reuse their production among themselves or with local authorities, and thus limit pollution, resource extraction, waste production, and energy consumption. Just an example, the question of the methanization, so the production of biogas. Typically, you collect the territorial waste, like a biomass. Then you put this biomass in the biogas plant, and then you can create a biogas production. So you can create energy, you can create heating, and you use waste that was supposed to remain waste. And now the idea is to make a waste a resource. So to conclude, the industrial and territorial ecology is a perfect response to the challenge of ecological transition in territories. So it's innovative, systemic, and transversal approach of the optimization of material flows. And industrial ecology provides a global and integrated response by proposing to draw inspiration from natural ecosystems characterized by optimal recycling of matter and energy, and to reorganize the industrial system in a viable way. So in the very short term, the question is to minimize the catastrophic effect of the COVID-19, but it is in the perspective of a building of more solid, more resilient, and above all, more environmentally friendly economic system that the circular economy finds all its interest. So our hypothesis is that the development of the circular economy in Europe makes it possible both to territorialize production and to promote the reindustrialization of our economy. Many thanks.
Thank you so much, Sébastien. Please stop sharing screen. Thank you very much. And now is the turn of John Goddard. Are you here, John? Yes, I see you.
Hi. Hello.
Ciao.
I just can't share the screen. Just a second.
Okay.
I need to get out of this. Just a second. Let me see if I can do this. I need to go in. Okay, I'm gonna get into my. I'm having a difficulty working to share the screen with my PowerPoint. Let me go into it. Okay.
Don't worry, we have time.
Let me see.
Take it easy.
Let me see. I've got to find my folders. Okay, I'm going to have to go without it. You're just going to have to listen to me without... the title of my talk is Civic Universities, Societal Innovation and the Recovery of Local Communities from COVID-19. And it does follow quite nicely from Enrico's presentation, and particularly the idea of the quadruple helix, about how universities can work together with civil society, industry and public authorities to help with the recovery. There's abundance of evidence that coronavirus has had a very differential impact, not only on various age groups and ethnic groups, but also on different localities, particularly those with a long history of economic and related social disadvantage. In many of these places across Europe, there's evidence that universities which have hitherto acted in a dual role as key anchor and knowledge institutions. And there's quite a lot of evidence, which I've been involved in, OECD, the European Commission, about the role of universities in place-based territorial development. But the critical issue about the present crisis is both an economic crisis and a social crisis. And what we try to do in some of the work that I've been involved in the UK is to look at the whole concept of the civic university. And what we've seen is many of these universities that have a sense of social responsibility to their place, having been engaged with dealing with the immediate crisis, with working with health service providers, with businesses, local authorities, the community and voluntary sector with real pace, skill and scale. And one of the effects of all of this, as communities have begun to realize how important the university is to their place as an institution, not just individual students, not just the academy, but the whole institution. And while the immediate focus of many universities has been on medical and life sciences, treating patients, developing new medicines, economists and other social sciences have been helping public authorities address some of the fundamental questions that we're talking about, how to recover from the crisis. And what we've seen in the empirical work that I've been involved in is university, academics, but whole institutions addressing the question of resilience. Resilience questions are: what sectors, what firms, what households are most at risk in your local economy? What are the contagion effects between different sectors, households and public services? And how do these things interact indeed in the circular economy and the foundational economy? What have been the geographical impacts of the crisis? Spatial inequalities have got sharper. Access to basic services have disappeared. Those been unable to work from home. It's very clear that home working has benefited some people in the professional classes and not so much the people who've been in the low-grade service economy, those that have been in manufacturing. So there's been a differential impact on different groups of people. And lots of people who are at the margin of the labour market, particularly young people, are now in a very difficult position. So the challenge that we face and where universities need to step up to the plate is how to provide guidance on how to build back to a better, more resilient and more inclusive and more productive way of working. And very much like the ideas that we've heard about the circular economy, how to introduce all those ideas into the discourse now about recovery from COVID. We've got all of these tools around which people have been talking about, which have come before the crisis. How do those tools that we're aware of, like the circular economy, now be used in the context of recovery? And so I think the issue in all of that is engaging not only with industry, but with civil society. Because some of the most disadvantaged regions will face the greatest challenges in rebuilding their local economies and I emphasize, and civil society. And the universities have a key role to play in both the economic sphere and the social sphere. But to do this, they have to adopt a different model of innovation than one we've been used to. One that puts citizens at the heart of place-based societal innovation. We have to move away from that traditional linear model of science and technology push. And up until now, this civic role of the university has not figured highly in the policy of national governments about the purpose and funding of higher education. It's been to some degree an inferior and third mission. It hasn't been embedded in the heartland of our teaching and research as institutions. And almost by definition, the third mission is an inferior mission. And in order to bring about these changes as the university becoming a key actor in recovery, we need to move a different model. And it asks some pretty fundamental questions about university as the academics and the academic leadership of universities. We have to being asked increasingly by outside peoples, not only what we are good at, that's the traditional scientific excellence, quotation in papers like regional studies, regional science, but what we are good for. What are we good for as well as what we are good at? How do we bring our excellence to tackle some of these big challenges of recovery? Responding both to questions simultaneous is, in my view, the what good at and what good for. That distinguishes what I call a civic university, responsible to the society in which it's embedded. And this involves both teaching and research. It has to be through our students in many of these areas are going to be severely affected. They're not going to have jobs, but equally they are very moved by the issues of sustainability. They're very proactive. They can learn by doing. So it has a fundamental impact, all of this, not only on our research, but how we teach our students. So we have to look at the whole syllabus. Are we getting our students to understand their social responsibility to the place where they're studying and where they will go into employment? And I think it needs a revision of our model of innovation. We're well aware of the discourse about the move from mode 1 linear to mode 2 innovation, which talks about co-production of knowledge. And this is absolutely fundamental to the notion of the way in which universities engage with their places. We have the multifaceted functions of the university as both an educational and cultural institution, not just a knowledge producer. We're not just pushing the knowledge out, pumping it out. We should be engaged in co-production of that. So it's not just about spin-outs and commercialization. It has to be linked to human capital upgrades in the urban labor market and social capital that builds trust and cooperative norms in the local governance system. The whole idea that the university can be a developmental actor. So in all the discussions that we talked about the circular economy, where does the university in a place act as a developmental actor? Its influence on the city-based political, institutional, and network factors that shape innovation processes beyond simply the input of knowledge capital. And if you look at all the discourse that the European Commission has been involved in around the future of innovation, the report I really love is the Madeleine Review from 2016, which is a very powerful critique of the linear model. And I just quote from that review. Innovation happens in complex ecosystems. Too often we imagine innovation in a linear way as a pipeline with inputs and outputs. But where we focus only on the pipeline, we risk the real needs of Europe's more diverse and demand-driven innovators. We need more open collaboration, both globally and locally, between citizens, governments, and inventors at home. And I love this quote, innovation economy is not a Roman aqueduct, but a muddy pool. It requires all actors, corporate, academic, civic, and political, working together, particularly at a local level. So there's this whole shift towards this quadruple helix model, discourse about open innovation, and a whole place-based shift. But what does this all mean for us in the universities? And what we've done in the UK, we've got a movement called the Civic University Movement. and nearly 60 universities have signed up to produce civic university agreements, which are with their local partners, which is based on understanding local populations, asking them what they want, understanding themselves as institutions, working with other local anchor institutions, business and community organizations to agree where the short, medium and long-term opportunities in a given area exist, a clear set of priorities, and the output of all this is a strategic analysis, a local engagement and prioritization with a clear plan of action. So this whole idea of having the university as part of a local recovery plan is at the heart of this whole idea of a civic university. And the universities that have signed up, from the rectors to these partnership agreements, they have 4 basic principles: place, public, partnerships, measurement and impact. And they've agreed, it's all down in writing, it's an agreement. As a place-based institution, the university is, my university is the rector saying this, we are committed to attaching a high priority to the economic, social, environmental and cultural life of our communities. The public, our public role will be informed by an evidence-based analysis, and this is where the economists come in, of the needs of our place, developed collaboratively with local partners and informed by the voice of our local communities, listening to what people need. Partnerships, we will collaborate with other universities and anchor institutions and form partnerships to overcome the challenges facing our local communities post-COVID. Finally, measurement and impact, and this is where the analytical tools of the economists come in. With our partners, we're clear about what we do and how we measure it, so we can say with confidence what we have achieved and how we might do better in the future. So this is really quite challenging. And there is very little national policy. Most national higher education systems are place blind. Most of European higher education policy is place blind. So we need to do this really from the bottom upwards. It needs, and I like the bottom up influence of these presentations. From the bottom up, we need to develop individual universities working on how they work with individuals, with the local economy, the health and well-being and inequalities, and the potential collapse of key sectors. One of the key sectors that we all know about that's affecting our local economy is the cultural sector. Tremendously hard hit. Tourism and all the cultural sectors. What are we doing at our universities about saving the cultural sector? The outcome should be less competition. Our system of higher education is based on competition. Competition between academics, competition between universities, league tables. That is fundamentally misguided. We need more collaboration. We need to work together and develop a more nuanced national and European guidance for the development of the whole system. And individual universities can learn from the good they have done during the health crisis. We've done a lot of good things here. Can we learn from those good things? And then seek to build their own futures based on what values they think are most important. So this whole notion about what are universities for? A new normal based on values rather than quasi-artificial market mechanisms of peer review and rankings needs to be replaced. A university working strongly with local government structures, working with a political system and influencing the financial system. So this demand on the crisis that we are facing is going to challenge the universities as a system to think in a very different way. There are real obstacles to achieving it, but we can achieve it by a mixture of bottom-up and top-down programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, John, for the things that you say that are quite consonant with the Sébastien Bourdin relation and presentation, and myself presentation. Now is especially to all of you, because you are so clear and so able to stay in the time you have to respect. Now is the turn of Peter Wojcik. Please, Peter, are you here? Are you able to
Hello,
speak?
nice to see you.
Ciao.
Let me try to share my screen. Okay, desktop.
I suggest that everyone prepare his screen in order that when he will be activated, he will immediately show the slides.
But by the way, we are in time, Riccardo. We are really in time.
Yes, you are.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me just maximize it. So my presentation relates to the topic of smart cities and the use of technology behind, but I added a few comments related to also the post-COVID era. So I'll talk about big data, artificial intelligence, and the sustainable development of cities. So basically, as we all know, now majority of people in current times live in urban areas. So the main challenge of our times is to somehow allow for sustainable development of cities. And currently, urban governance and policy decisions are to a large extent influenced by the technological revolution and the emergence of new concepts and tools like big data, the Internet of Things, machine learning, or artificial intelligence, which is, by the way, called new electricity recently by Andrew Ng, for example. So in short, it means collecting and processing really massive amounts of data collected in real time and application of predictive models to improve the governance of cities. And this idea of incorporating in information and communication technologies and artificial intelligence into day-to-day activities of people living in cities to provide them with better living and working conditions led to the emergence of the idea of smart city. So there are many opportunities which these solutions give to the city inhabitants, as modern cities face a lot of different problems. And one of the most common ways of using Internet of Things and AI to make urban life better is, for example, smart traffic management. So installing sensors on the road surface and closed circuit cameras allow cities to monitor the flow of traffic in real time and notify users about congestion, traffic signals, malfunctions, and alternate roads. Those road sensors can be used to implement smart parking, for example. Energy consumption and costs of streetlights can be reduced with smart lighting. The same road, parking, and lamp sensors can be used to monitor the quality of air, the level of noise, and serve as, for example, Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi network spots. And networks of cameras and sensors can also help to prevent crime from occurring. This is called smart policing. And the use of AI solutions can also provide a sustainable and smart waste management system, introducing savings and ecological advantages. But let me also relate to the smart city solutions, which may be helpful also in and after the COVID-19 era. So basically, in the context of rapid aging of the EU population and also the recent COVID-19 experience, I think that increased access to affordability and high quality healthcare is of great importance. And here, AI technology enables smart healthcare, where with the use of wearable devices, it allows the automation of medical diagnostics and assistance at the right time in case of life-threatening danger. So patients, but also suspected cases, like in the recent era, can be monitored in real time, and the collected data can be analyzed by doctors, researchers, and healthcare professionals, which leads to more personalized, better diagnosis and solutions. And at the same time, it of course offers also savings of costs and time, both for patients and for hospitals. And here applying predictive modeling, machine learning models on large amounts of data can play an important role in the healthcare observation of the population. And of course, it can also help in early detection of health issues. The other topic is smart governance. So the main purpose behind the idea of smart cities is to make life in cities more comfortable and convenient for their inhabitants, which requires smart governance, which can be, for example, the use of data and technology for more efficient and informed and evidence-based decision-making by city authorities, and for improved collaboration and communication with citizens, NGOs, business, and other stakeholders. Okay, so what's the impact of COVID-19 outbreak on smart city solutions? So, of course, it had a very strong impact on the development of smart city solutions and may give lessons for future. As smart city solutions may allow us to defend against future pandemics or detect it early enough to find good solution earlier. So one of the most important results of the pandemic is the acceleration of digital transformation strategies called Industry 4.0. One could also observe the acceleration of the development of remote city services and medical consultations, remote medical consultations, both in public and private sector during the lockdown when everyone was locked at home. Another very important result is the greater automation of human labor, which can be seen, for example, in automated cash registers in stores or autonomous delivery, which expanded. I observed from Polish experience, but I think it's similar in all the countries which were touched by the pandemic. So there are many innovative artificial intelligence-based solutions which can be useful in defending against COVID-19, and that also play an important role in smart cities. So for example, remote temperature sensing with thermal cameras. Cameras can be also used to recognize whether people are wearing face masks. We can use the information from wearables or smartphones to track disease using data on geolocation. Drones have been used for spraying disinfectants. Drones or robots were also used for enforcement of social distancing rules. In Singapore, I think you've heard about robo-dogs in Singapore that played this role. With massive data collected from individuals, we can make real-time heat maps of crowding in public spaces. This also relates to the social distancing. In Wuhan, there was an implementation of a smart audio screening system for COVID-19, as there were so many cases that humans were not able to call all the patients or potential patients, and there was an AI solution where the automated system called massively suspected cases to check their symptoms and identify people that are ill. Okay, so what are the most important challenges related to those artificial intelligence solutions? So basically, collecting of massive amounts of data, sensitive data, as they relate to health issues, raises the question of maintaining privacy and protecting the system against cyber risk. This is not only the issue of companies which provide such solutions, but also for governments or local governments. There's an example of Apple and Google who joined forces and created the COVID-19 tracking software, which is offered to everyone, but many countries, including Poland, but also UK, as I've heard, prefer to use their own solutions. And in Poland, the government strongly promotes own application for tracking, diseases, which is called Protego Safe. This is especially focused on elderly people, but basically there are many doubts about the security of this application. Its source code was not published, and it was pointed out that the data collected by this application was not fully and completely anonymized. So we were, people in Poland are scared that government collects sensitive data about their citizens. So basically, to accept such solutions, of course, users need to trust this solution. Trust is a crucial keyword in here. So another challenge is the reliability and scalability of IT infrastructure, especially in case of massive remote education in cities and telework, which increases web traffic dramatically, and it requires stable internet connections. Internet connectivity is also needed to keep citizens informed in real time. So that raises another issue, the issue of inclusiveness, right? So to be successful, especially in the pandemic situation, the smart city solutions must be massive and include all inhabitants. And as we all know, there is clear digital divide. There are social equity problems for lower income families, for example, or families with more children. If all children have to take part in remote education, then it raises the problems of not enough computers at home. Or it also raises problems of inclusiveness for elderly people who are not aware of those solutions and need help. And of course, last but not least is the costs, the problem of costs. All those solutions are very costly, and the cost could be lowered if some common standards were developed. As so far different solutions have different standards, they do not cooperate with one another. So assuring compatibility between different technologies and systems could provide us with lower costs. So to conclude, finally, I think that was also indicated before by previous speakers. Those solutions need to meet real needs of urban residents. So we need to discover what people really need, and then it's easier for them to accept even complex solutions when they really solve their problems. Solutions should be tailored to ensure that the public health dimension is adequately cared for. This is especially important in a case of recent pandemia, but such solutions also need to be safe, reliable, scalable, and inclusive, and also transparent to citizens. People want to use solutions which they don't trust, right? Which are not transparent, where there is some algorithmic bias that may draw some non-perfect solutions. So trust of the users, here city inhabitants, is the crucial element of success of smart city solutions, especially when the collection of processing of large amounts of data is concerned. And if we want to predict and defend against future pandemia, such technologies have to collect massive data, otherwise it doesn't make sense. And of course, there is a need for active collaboration between city planners, tech firms, and citizens to identify those needs, to cope with all those issues which I mentioned. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Piotr. And again, I stress the fact that there is a strong coincidence of many issues raised by the other presentation. You have to add in the need of collaboration university, Piotr, not only technicians, because technicians, is a little bit too technical.
Sure,
by the way.
Yeah, university.
No, it was just a joke word, don't worry. Okay, now is the turn of Andrea Salustri. Andrea, are you here, I suppose? Please.
Yes, here I am. Good morning, Enrico.
It's up to you.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Andrea Salustri from Sapienza University of Rome, and I would like to thank Professor Cappellin for the invitation to present during this web forum, and Professor Cicciotti for chairing this session. I'm here to present research work co-authored with Alessandro Locatelli and Andrea Polloni on space research and regional development. We feel this argument of great importance to interpret the rise of the new economy and its social and territorial consequences, especially within the current global scenario characterized by the COVID crisis. According to Poyola, the term new economy, I will start with a definition of new economy. According to Poyola, the term new economy was coined by the business press to address two broad trends in the world economy. The globalization of business after the collapse of socialism and the revolution in information and communication technology. Unfortunately, while opening unprecedented opportunities of economic growth and well-being, the new economy also poses additional societal challenges of redistributive and environmental nature. This is the general picture in which, at the beginning of 2020, COVID-19 pandemic generated, beside the dramatic loss of human life, unexpected and unprecedented financial, economic, and social consequences. Specifically, at territorial and social level, the COVID crisis will probably force a shift from a phase of resistance to the new economy toward a phase of resilience, that is, a phase during which the previously relevant social and territorial actors will either move to the new development paradigm or exit from the scene. And I must say that I place myself among the old actors because I resisted initially to the new economy paradigm. I believe that to be successful in this transition phase, we must be aware of the ongoing technological change and of the societal challenges that we are all going to face, and that industrial policy might contribute to narrowing the gap between technological and societal issues. Within this general framework, the space economy and space-borne Earth observations might offer new opportunities of development, economic growth, and employment, as well as a remarkable contribution to the implementation of the SDGs. The rationale of I wrote this paper with Alessandro Locatelli and Andrea Polloni because Alessandro and I had the opportunity to be part of a research project managed by Professor Piga and Professor Borra concerning Essering's value to Italy. It happened 3 years ago, and we were at Essering, the ESA Center for Earth Observation. And while working at the ESA establishment located in Frascati near Rome, Alessandro and I had the chance to improve our knowledge on space-related innovation. And Andrea Polloni joined the team, sharing with us his valuable experience on public procurement and industrial policies. Therefore, we decided to write a short note on the connection between Earth observation and industrial policy and regional development. The key messages of our research are the following.
Andrea, we are seeing only the first slide of your
Yes, but I prepared just a speech and a few graphs. I have a few graphs to show you in the...
Don't worry, because somebody asked me to ask you to share the presentation. Okay, thank you. Go on, please.
Okay. Key messages of our research are the following. Spaceborne Earth observations are expected to provide important strategic, social, and economic benefits of territorial and societal nature. Therefore, it is paramount to deploy an effective strategy for stimulating among individuals and private and public actors the uptake of EO data, services, and information. So this key message is in line with previous interventions, at least with 3 of them. To access the benefits offered by Earth observation and more in general by the recent spatial and digital innovation trends, social and territorial conflicts should evolve into social cooperation, as all individuals and all private and public institutions are called to play a role in the activation of processes of resilient transformation towards sustainable development. Indeed, space innovation is the main byproduct of the space economy. According to the OECD, the latter includes all public and private actors involved in developing, providing, and using space-related products and services, ranging from research and development, the manufacture and use of space infrastructure, ground stations, launch vehicles, and satellites, and going to space-enabled application, navigation equipment, satellites phone, meteorological services, etc. And it includes also the scientific knowledge generated by such activities. So we have an upstream sector, a downstream sector, and related applications. In space-related disciplines, as well in many other fields of innovation, this is the first graph. In space-related disciplines, as well as in many other fields of innovation, initially, scientific research operates at decreasing return to scale. You can see the curve that has a positive slope, positive but decreasing slope. Then state intervention is of the utmost importance in passing through the so-called valley of death. That is a phase at zero or negative return to scale. You see that if you add output is on the x-axis. I don't know if you can see it. And the output indeed decreases. So this is a very dramatic phase for survival. And the state intervention is necessary in this phase, according also to the famous work, the seminal work of Mazzucato, Mariana Mazzucato. If due to state intervention, is it possible to pass through the valley of death, innovation achieves increasing return to scale, and the latter create incentives for embodying innovations in new products and services, exchanged on the markets. Finally, this is an important phase, the fourth phase, that creates circularity. Finally, imitation and optimization processes might push average costs towards zero, fostering a phase in which social and solidarity initiatives might contribute to disseminating innovations on a wider scale. It means beyond markets. Within this institutional framework, space-borne Earth observation plays a pivotal role in providing environmental and societal benefits, as well as economic benefits. Paraphrasing Ashbacher, this is the head of Estering, and he wrote a paper a few years ago on this topic. The major source of your related economic value depends on how the information collected changes the decision makers' prior beliefs about uncertainties and the value that decision makers would derive from the resulting change. Also, it is worth noting how national and international organizations are recognizing the benefits achievable from application of Earth observation and how the socioeconomic impact of Earth observation has become a key argument to justify European investments. Indeed, numerous business opportunities arise along the whole EO value chain, from development and manufacturing upstream to operation and services downstream. At institutional level, by providing platforms and infrastructure for information exchange and informed decision-making, space applications contribute to improve governance processes, to a more efficient use of resources, and to increase competitiveness. Finally, space research can yield evidence for long-term processes that increase knowledge and understanding as a basis for responsible actions of social and environmental nature. You can see in this graph how benefits provided by space research are cumulative, rather, I mean, they cumulate across time. So societal benefits strengthen and secure economic benefits, and both of them secure political and scientific benefits. It's not a substitution, it's a cumulation of benefits. And that should create incentives to go until the achievement of societal benefits. I mean, to follow the whole path of innovation until social and solidarity and cooperation. Despite space and EO-related disruptive innovative potential, many regions are not able to follow spatial innovation patterns, and inequality is increasing both between and within regions. Indeed, at the regional level, technological transfer is not always effective, and innovation is mostly embodied in market goods and services that result to be too expensive for a wide share of population, alimenting regional processes of social marginalization. So the fourth phase might be crucial in overcoming regional inequalities, both within and between inequalities, because it might go beyond market diffusion of innovation. Moreover, at local level, several inner areas have scarce accessibility to the regional networks, and due to increasing distance costs, territorial peripheralization might follow increasing rather than decreasing trends. However, EO-related application and services might provide benefits also in peripheral territories, by improving territorial accessibility and fostering social participation in innovative networks. Moreover, a wider access to low-cost resources in marginal areas might foster a process of decentralization of productive activities towards regional peripheries, rather than towards other regions, due to a mix of social proximity and reduced distance costs. Indeed, in the service sector, that might be connected to reshoring. Indeed, in the service sector, many activities do not generate relevant distance costs. Consider as an example the production of a software, the advent of digital manufacturing, or the process of implementation of EO services. And the process of regional decentralization might provide access to the benefits of lower congestion and slower territorial dynamics. Why the ESA base is not downtown in Rome, but is in Frascati, a small town close to Rome? Because it is outside the urban congestion. At territorial level, new economic sites related to service activities may arise in regional peripheries, reshuffling urban ranks due to their high hierarchical relevance. Consequently, the new regional core might lose its concentration, becoming widely dispersed across the territory, and urban areas might lose their predominance over rural and natural areas. Finally, the new, probably dispersed and spatial regional core might contribute to revitalizing several sectors of economic activity, alimenting innovation networks based on proximity. This is a very Schumpeterian idea. It's a process of disruptive creation. To conclude, as suggested in the new European Industrial Strategy, social and territorial inequalities should be targeted to eradicating persistent forms of marginalization, poverty, and exclusion. Notwithstanding their social relevance, the latter might also generate negative indirect economic impacts as the, I'm talking about marginalization, poverty, and exclusion, might also generate negative indirect economic impacts as they might exclude or limit the access to proximity innovation networks, especially of geographic and social nature. Besides their commodification, therefore, space and EO innovations might contribute to achieve a social and territorial level playing field by fostering processes of commodification, activating the so-called cornucopia of commons, in which more value is created as more people use the resource and join the social community. Furthermore, at territorial and environmental level, EO-related activities might trigger a structural change involving several economic sectors, as widely documented in the collection of success stories related to the ever-growing use of Copernicus across Europe's region. Copernicus is ESA and European Commission program for Earth observation. Indeed, some commercial Copernicus-based solutions are finally entering into the markets, and this can be largely attributed to the Copernicus open and free data policy, as well as to guarantee its long-term availability. At the macro scale, it's worth mentioning at least 3 issues in which the EO processes might innovate. At the national level, the space economy might be an important driver of digital and industrial innovation, and satellites might narrow territorial imbalances by improving physical and digital communications, and by innovating several processes of territorial and environmental management. I'm thinking about ITE as an example, that one quoted by previous speakers. Within the European Union, satellite data might, on the one hand, support the design and implementation of environmental policies, and on the other hand, contribute to narrowing spatial distances affecting European economic networks, therefore facilitating the economic and political regional integration. Finally, at global level, satellite data allow to improve the knowledge of the Earth systems, fostering the achievement of a global model of Earth's socio-economic environmental behavior that might support the identification of a sustainable pattern of development. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Andrea. And now, last but not least, Juan Carlos, it's up to you. I don't know if Juan Carlos is going to speak or who else. Are you speaking?
Thank you, Enrico Cicciotti. Thank you. I'm going to prepare the slide. It's okay. Okay. Okay, I'm Juan Carlos Rodríguez Coat from the University of Jaén. I'm going to present the paper prepared by Juan José Juste from the University of Valladolid and Antonio Vázquez Barquero from the Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. The paper is Local Development Policies, Evolution and Challenges in Spain. The process of circular and cumulative causation, the differences in human capital and endogenous processes of innovation make an increase in returns for capital, producing a change in the quality of migration. Instead of pushing unqualified workers to migrate, the most qualified are the ones that find new opportunities in richer regions. Consequently, capital regions and the traditional richest areas in Europe have concentrated more and more economic power. Despite the effort of cohesion policies to balance the process of concentration. For the following years, the connections between high technology and industry require a special investment effort, especially in lagging regions, where a new generation of local development policies should be implemented. We formulate the following questions. Are macroeconomic policies paving the way for lagging regions to implement innovation policies? How should local development policies evolve in order to allow lagging regions to be more competitive? We have identified 6 problems. Local development policies were focused on a new market orientation, such as advanced services for small companies to pay, shifting the main purpose of the origin of local development policies, that is, support the local endowment of productive factors. As a result, big companies linked to local production systems and international networks became the target of Spanish market technology centers, or on the contrary, local innovation policies should be dismantled. The economic financial crisis has affected local development policy. The chain of problems associated with its origin and progression has derived in solutions of macroeconomic adjustment to the detriment of microeconomic actions more sensitive to territorial specificities. In Spain, apparent labor productivity has been growing at a pace below the European Union, and capital deepening has decreased, which has widened the social gap of territorial inequalities between and within countries and regions. Some of the main problems of local development policies to be implemented are in relation to top-down priorities and sectorial perspectives. Most of the problems of subsidies efficiency are in relation to the interpretation of public funds as an opportunity for capturing them, even before having a clear idea of how they are going to be used. The COVID-19 pandemic has corroborated the vulnerability of the Spanish model, intensively based on low added services and building sector. To address these problems, we propose a new local development policy. Local development policies more oriented towards competitive challenges is needed. Upgrading and diversifying industrial and service activities in lagging territories is possible by changing the current no industrial policy to a general agreement for investments in rural and deprived regions in Europe for increasing their capacity to improve their role in global value chains. In this sense, technological centers linked to agrarian institutes working together with regional universities and local firms and farmers are useful territorial networks to improve and adapt food and other agrarian products for international markets. Shifting the common agriculture policy to investments in infrastructure, technology, education, circular economy, skills, and small and medium professional farmers should be addressed, instead of allocating resources in elites living in big and well-connected cities. Territorial identity could be used as a catalyst to promote symbolic functions in some spaces in order to improve the local capacity to act, for example, in agro-industry. Strategic territorial planning should improve its capacity to propose strategic local initiatives. The time for testing should be overcome, avoiding gathering individual projects as a strategic response of the territory. It is needed to think how territory can respond to the challenges, not how each body or social actor does. In the same line, truly territorial cluster policies should be implemented. It is necessary to break the idea of using cohesion funds for only stimulate demand, either in politics arena, in the case of public bodies, or when people have used them as social subsidies, as the case of training courses, for instance, instead of using them for socioeconomic investments in the territorial, human, and physical capital. That is, using industrial policy within an atmosphere of intelligent Keynesianism. The coordination of economic, political, and social actors of different tiers of government plays a central role in the implementation of local economic policy. In the current scenario of deglobalization, it is convenient to pay a greater attention to manufacturing as a lever for territorial change. It is necessary to encourage the third-rank system of cities where most rural areas are connected in order to take advantage of a more polycentric territory, making the most of strategic spatial interactions. In sum, a policy aimed at increasing the territorial competitiveness of rural areas and small and medium city systems is needed. Otherwise, less dynamism, aggravated by the loss of human capital, and a less advantageous productive specialization will tend to move them away from the desirable socioeconomic convergence with the more prosperous regions of the country and the European Union. Consequences could deepen the serious inequalities of today, in clear contrast to the philosophy of cohesion policy. Place-based policies need to bear in mind features conditioning the success of local development policies implementation, such as the quality of government, the absorptive capacity of regions, and the presence of cultural and social particularities. Developing companies' networks, regional innovation systems, sectorial institutions, and improving the level of social and economic structure are important. All these elements push territorial development processes in Europe forward and are fundamental pillars for fighting against inequalities. Furthermore, they also contribute towards extending opportunities for choosing occupations and improving skills, preventing increasing territorial and social inequalities in the future. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much. We have enough time, enough room for a short discussion among us, because now is almost 10:20, 10:18, so up to 10:30. So if anybody wants to speak and to say something, is welcome. Nobody's going to interview. Riccardo, do you like to say something? Or Gioacchino or anybody else?
Two words from Gioacchino. Only two words. Thanks for the papers. I found a great interaction among the different papers. There are some general statements that already could be taken from the presentation of these papers. I liked a lot the paper of Jean Goddard, especially because our young colleagues forgot the role of the university for regional development. So underlining the role of self-mission, the civic university role, it seems to me quite important in this moment. COVID stressed this problem, but university till now weren't able to offer some, I don't want to say solution, but at least an arena of discussion for this. And this is a crucial point. Thanks a lot.
Can I just come back on that? I think this is a very important issue for the European Regional Science Association, Regional Studies Association. Many universities have experts in territorial development in their academies, but they are not using our expertise. In other words, you know, many people who are running universities are characteristically scientists, medical scientists, hard scientists, do not understand the social sciences, but are under pressure from politicians, local people, for the university to do something. But what we have to do as regional scientists is actually start talking to the leaders of our institutions and providing them access to the vast knowledge base that is available. I mean, there's a vast literature on universities and regional innovation systems. And they all tend to be, insofar as they talk to anybody, they talk to the hard scientists who do not understand that pathway that was on the space diagram, that fourth stage, which involves the economic, the political, the social. And they're still stuck with the scientists have all the answers. Well, we do need the science. I'm not saying the scientists are wrong. It's just that we, social scientists, need to start working with the economists, the political science people. We need to be cross-disciplinary across the whole institution and advise the rectors and the senior management in their discussions with the mayors and the city and the citizens. So our body of knowledge needs to get, every academic in this network of regional sciences needs to be talking not only to other academics in their own disciplines, academics in the sciences and other disciplines, but also to the leaders of the university. Bang on the door of your rector and say, look, there is a whole host of knowledge. All these models we've got, circular economy, all the things you've been talking about, these are fundamentally important tools. And you need in this crisis at what I call key institutions. And the universities are key anchor institutions in places. And we need to be active in doing something about it. Because if we don't, the politicians will take the money away from us. You know, there's a view in the popular press across Europe, in the US, it's terrible in the US, that the academy is seen to be a sheltered workshop for academics to indulge themselves. And if we don't get out and do stuff, they'll pull the plug on us.
Thank you, John. You are totally right. By the way, our network tries to do something different from the normal approach of academics. This is why we are here to discuss, but we don't have to discuss among us. I agree. We have to discuss. We have to make strong efforts for pushing the politicians and normal people in this direction. You know, there is a very, very old contrast, you know, between between excellence and relevance of science, you know, and always excellence was in some way put ahead. Relevance of science is something that is not so important. Very often, when you stress the relevance, people say that you are not excellent. And that is a crucial point to me. Riccardo, you want to add something?
I think it's another dimension is to be stressed is the relationship of this session on cities and regions and the other session who deal with industrial problems or industrial policy problem and a macroeconomic problem and the institutional problem. And I think explicitly Dimitri Korpakis said in his paper, which will be presented in the next session, the European Recovery Program does not have a spatial dimension. This is really strange because within the European Union budget, the cohesion policy has a very strong importance. But it seems that now the European Recovery Program will be organized according to national and European lines, and regional and local institutions are not considered. Now, I think that the role of the Regional Science Association and the Regional Study Association is very important. I think, John, that is very difficult to talk within the university, because within the university we have many administrative, financial problems, and the interdisciplinary work which you advocate, I think is a task of the scientific association, like regional science and regional studies. We can organize, and in Italy, I also try to do within our conference to enlarge the scope of the disciplines in order to have at our conferences within our the activity of our association, that interdisciplinary work which is difficult paradoxically within the individual department, within the individual faculties of the university. So I think our organization, which is these two associations, have a major task. First of all, to discuss with European institutions in order to bring the attention to the spatial, regional, local dimension of the investment effort of the European Union, and second, to enlarge the attention to other disciplines.
If I can say a few words about that, just to tell you that we are already engaged, and we engage more and more every year with the EU, and especially with the DG Regio. Maybe we should have engaged with more DG. That's a good topic. But we are organizing a lot of networks during the EWRC, and you know that we are scheduled to organize one this year. Also, we are training young scholars during the master classes with the EU in order to train them to policies, and also we are doing that with regional studies and with ESOP both. And also we are organizing as ERSA conferences, which are the DG Regio conferences a few times per year around policy. So we are already engaged with the EU, and probably we have to do more. And I completely agree with you. And probably with other DG on the one hand, and also to be more focused, to have a precise discussion. So I'm pretty open to discuss with you and maybe to open new type of discussion with the EU. So that's a very good point. So we can discuss that. Yeah, of course.
Can I just come back there, because I think I spent most of my academic life in Brussels walking between three DGs. DG Regio, DG RTD, who's responsible for the research programs, and they have very different views of the world, and DG Education and Culture. which is quite important, has a very big range of programs. And so part of the issue, I think, both regional studies and EAS should be beginning to talk to a number of DGs. So I think this whole issue that we're thinking about place and space is we have to join up the silos across both our national governments and the European Union. So I'll urge you to sort of think about that. And there's a phrase I used in a response, and other people will know about that, but the whole idea of responsible research and innovation is quite an important concept, which comes out of DGRTD.